esoterror podcast. Oh, hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to esoterror podcast. This is episode 11. Uh, Adam and I had a 2 week hiatus, so we're back. We had some things come up, and definitely we were kind of a little beat up after our episode 10 got removed. It kind of demoralized us in a way, but we're back. Got an episode prepared for you. Today we're probably going to do a little bit more of a free talk, but first I want to get into shout out Chris at work for giving us the idea of researching Pythagoras. He brought up some things that he thought were interesting and thought would be right up our alley. So he had stated he heard rumors that Pythagoras had the ability to teleport and that he might have had a golden arm for some time. And those are things we'd like to clarify, but I'd like to say, what up, Adam?
How you doing, my dude? It has been like an arduous cycle, an arduous week, whatever the hell it is that's in the ether or the zodiac or, asparagus is in the microwave or Mercury is in retrograde. I understand and I like witness things that are happening within the stars and the heavens and everything, but we're definitely we're in some dark arts right now. I hope everybody else out there is doing well. I hope that y'all have a good connection to nature. Case in point, like you were saying that y'all just spent the weekend in a cabin.
Yeah, up in Estes. So that was pretty cool. But
Estes Park is a beautiful place. For anybody that doesn't know, Estes Park is it's one of the foremost access points to the Rocky Mountain National Forest. And so you have one of the largest populations of like elk. And if anybody hasn't experienced elk, they're basically fur-covered dinosaurs. If I remember right, I want to say that they're one of the few animals that have ivory in their body, but the ivory is in their voice box and they just make this like ungodly noise. It's a beautiful noise, but also like kind of demonic, like there are these big smelly furry dinosaurs like woo.
Well, when it's elk season, their mating season, they're freaking walking through the town and stuff. But we saw through deer and stuff like that. But it was pretty cool. There's snow on the ground and definitely feeling like Christmas at this point.
You're actually somebody who gets into the Christmas spirit, right? Like, I've always been a Grinchy hearted bastard, but somehow, like, the second that I hear no other Christmas music touches me except for Nat King Cole, and I hear that guy's silvery voice, and I'm like, God damn it. Like, I'm always broke around Christmas, and I always have to make presents for people. And so, before we did this podcast, I was sitting down and I was like, I got to get really busy because it's all about the Christmas spirit. I know that it spits in the face of everything that it's based on, but my definition of Christmas has always been very important to me.
So, no, I've actually been more of a Grinch like you, and I feel like Christmas songs and stuff that because we're on a collective consciousness that if we've heard it for as long as they've been out, and there's not very many new ones coming out, so you hear the same ones over and over again every year. But because kids and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
How important is Christmas to be able to live vicariously through the kids, though? You get to take them and see Christmas lights, and they'll remember that for their whole lives. Or you get to put up a Christmas tree and give them presents. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all about they'll see the wrapped gifts for weeks under the well-lit tree, or if there's a tree, or if there's just lights in the season or whatever, and they associate those things. You're having a party where you make cookies. That's what it's all about. It's about these rituals that we do that are so important, like the formative years for children. That's why I think it's okay to lie to children about the idea of, like, say, Santa. Hey, spoiler alert. Yeah, exactly.
The Christmas Story.
Yeah. You'll shoot
Tradition. Watching that and Christmas Vacation and those movies and things like that. And okay, so what you brought up earlier, the Christmas spirit, I do like it. You know what I mean? I just wish people would have it more throughout the year.
Yeah.
You know, just that feeling of people caring, being happier, things like that at this time of the year, but it should just be beyond that, I
Yeah.
feel.
For me, you know, as a kid, I was raised in a household where the nearest religion we had was Star Trek. We always were raised to think that religion was this evil force and it's all institution and, you know, like the evil people that work within churches. And there's a little bit of validity to that, but it kind of missed the whole message. But like even when I was a kid, when I listened to Nat King Cole would go hard in the paint about some very religious songs. One of my favorite is Fall on Your Knees, Oh Hear the Angels' Voices, Oh Night Divine, the night that Christ was born. I never, despite the fact that I was raised to reject that kind of ideology, every time I heard that song, I would just kind of like, I love this song and I love the spirit of Christmas. And so you're right when you say that you wish that people would have that energy throughout the year, but everything in its season is that the nice thing about Christmas, certainly here in Colorado, anybody not in Colorado that happens to be listening to us, it is brutally cold outside. It is not like a usual Colorado cold. It's like space outside. You need a space suit. It's not like a humid cold. It's not like an arid cold. It is like space came down from the sky and it's just the absence of temperature. It's fucked up.
It's pretty
But
damn cold outside, but
that Christmas brings, even for the ultimate agnostic, uh, altruistic, self-invested, whatever kind of philosophy it was that I was raised on, is that anything to do with God is always going to lead to the church and establishment and darkness. It's dark. And it's like, well, that's weird because I thought that people got together during Christmas and you'd make the house smell like nature and you'd have like a plant in your home that everybody had kind of gather around and you'd make cookies and you'd make like warm baked goods. Is that despite the cold, it always seemed warmer inside.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man, with the hot cocoa and stuff. So when we were at Estes, we chilled with the fireplace and stuff. I had hot cocoa and there was a hot tub, but that shit was fucking hot, dude. It was hot, like too hot for me to get in. That shit burned my feet. I tried, and
Yeah.
but I don't know. Do you want to talk about what Christmas actually came from? You know, the original Trinity and the
Yeah.
tree.
Down the background for sure.
So the original Trinity for Christmas was from pagans. Not sure exactly what type of religion it came from 100%. I think it might be a Persian, but it was a Tammuz, Samaranus, and I can't remember the other one. But anyways, I don't know
Well,
if you want
okay,
to look that
so
up.
basically, when you're talking about the origins stemming from Persia, they wouldn't have the same definition of the Christmas spirit that we do because they were living in a much more temperate, if not desert climate.
Oh, it's
And so
Nimrod.
Nimrod.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
Oh,
here in our climate and like most of what, so you have that background, the origin of, and a lot of which comes from it. Like when you want to talk about like, oh, Christ divine, the night that Christ was born, like the Nat King Cole song, is that we associate that in our climate where we kind of combine the idea of a lot of like Nordic or colder climate ideology where it is the warmth that comes into the home, which is
oh,
very much like the idea of Christianity is like the warmth coming in from the cold of reality. If I could even make that claim, the godless heathen that I am, it's interesting because the origins of it, when you even talk about the origins of, and then it gets adopted and adapted throughout the ages. And now we associate it with winter. I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about Christmas is that I'm more in tune with the shit going on in the heavens, the cycles, the wheel, the
oh,
zodiac, the
actually,
astrology, and the seasons. And so Christmas is very much in place as to where it kind of should be, just like autumn and Halloween, like the dying of the season, the entering into the death, the dying, and then Christmas is right at the cusp of the death. Like, what is it to do with the 25th of December? Is that not around the day that the sun doesn't any longer diminish or rise anymore, but it rests for 3 days and then comes up again? Is that Christmas or is that Easter?
I'm not sure. I think it already did right now. I think the sun was setting for 3 days straight around 4:30. But
When
no, I wasn't referencing the exact like Santa Claus and all of that. But the December 25th is tied to all cultures. So like Krishna, Horus, Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Yeshua, they're all supposedly born at that time. Um, Even Tammuz, okay? So Nimrod and Semiramis gave birth to Tammuz, and it's phallus worship, right? So the monoliths, the hell they call them in Egypt. But anyways, that's where the Christmas tree came from. And when you knelt down to it with your hands out, that's where the receiving presents come from.
Okay.
And Santa Claus comes from other things, other mythologies, and there's a bunch, different Santa Clauses from around the world.
I had to look it up because I always get this wrong. I always, again, like godless heathen that I am, I always get it confused. And so I had to look it up. But in the Julian calendar, the 25th of December was reckoned the winter solstice. And it was regarded as the nativity of the sun because the day begins to lengthen and the power of the sun to increase from that turning point of the year.
But so when you were saying about we're taken from other cultures, truth be told is that the three wise men who went to go visit the Messiah, they were actually Zoroastrian priests
Yeah.
from Persian culture,
Well, they would have to be absolute badasses because they made this ultimate journey to go find like their wives and families were asking like, "Yo, John, Jerry, Jimmy, what are you doing?" And it's like, "We're loading up the camels. Didn't you hear? We got to go see this baby." They're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And they're like, "Just hold up. This is going to be important for years and years to come. Like, we're a bunch of wise fuckers. We're going to go see this baby. Just wait."
And only being led by the stars, and bringing gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Which are all very relevant. I'm sure that they did bring those things, but the importance of those things, I think it was you that broke it down as to the importance of each of those things factor into the relevance of the very star that they followed that led them to what it was that we now listen to Nat King Cole songs about.
Oh, and I like a lot of them, like Silver Bells.
You like Silver Mouse?
I do, and
It's weird though, right? Like some of these even goofy songs like the Grinch. You
yeah,
have something in your heart when you hear the Grinch and you're like, I get it. I get it.
I like the Wham one. This Christmas, Wham.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
just like all the free ice skating around town. You know, I was out at DIA the other day. They have a whole ice rink out there. And for whatever reason, it isn't open this season. But usually you go out to the airport, they'll give you ice skates for free and you could just skate the rink for free. And they have nice lights and everything. Like it's a very welcoming thing to bring to Denver. You got to do something fun when it's this goddamn cold outside.
I went to the Parade of Lights and the Thornton Winter Fest, and
Did you go to the Parade of Lights here in Denver?
yeah,
Man, I definitely wanted to do that. Was it awesome?
yeah, it was pretty good actually. I got pictures, and
Yeah. I always like what they do with the lights at the city and county building, right? Like the one right across from the Capitol.
yeah.
Yeah, so you have the Capitol, you have
No,
Civic
we were
Center.
basically up of 14th and Blake. I think is where we waited at the beginning of the parade. So
Right. So y'all really followed the whole thing.
not just we just got to see the whole. Since we see it from the beginning, we've seen it all. We see it start and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Do they have floats and stuff? It's really more of like people playing like live music and everything. Like they
No, they
don't
have
have.
floats and balloons. They had
Okay.
people walk the balloons, you know what I mean? And they have floats with different like they had this one with tigers and stuff on it. I think it was supposed to be kind of like Aladdin. They had a Santa Claus one, like a Winter Wonderland. They had a
Yeah.
few different ones that were themed, but then they had the blow up things like the Grinch, things like that. You know that people were walking these giant balloons, not exactly as big as the Macy's Day Parade, but
Yeah. There are a lot of things in modern culture that I feel dubious about, like the minions. I don't know what the fuck those things are. Like if I saw a minion in real life, I would put that thing in the microwave. And granted, it was like decades ago that the Grinch was made, but I feel like the Grinch is ultimately a force for good. I watched the Grinch movie, like the old cartoon. I don't know about the Jim Carrey one. I never really cared for that. I like Ron Howard movies okay, but I just like the Grinch live action movie weirds me out. But the OG cartoon Grinch movie that Boris Karloff played the voice of the Grinch, the guy that played Frankenstein, Boris Karloff, that movie always gets me in touch. Like I want to make cookies, I
you're
want to
Tony
make
the
wreaths,
Tiger.
I want to wrap presents, I want to make presents.
Yeah, Tony the Tiger singing the Grinch. But now have you seen the Benedict Cumberbatch one?
No,
It's a Pixar one from the same people who did the Minions, but I don't it's okay, I guess, for a new one, but it doesn't compare to the other two. At least the other two
I
feel like
trust
the book.
Benedict Cumberbatch, and I love Benedict Cumberbatch. But I feel the same way about Benedict Cumberbatch as I feel about Michael Fassbender as playing Magneto. Is that Michael Fassbender is going to be just the best at whatever he does, but he is more connected with the idea of Magneto than anybody ever could be. It's just that the studios are going to make sure that he doesn't really get his way to connect with it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess
Merry Christmas, Michael Fassbender. Fuck.
yeah, talking about the Christmas though, I want to go back to Pythagoras. So for Chris, the teleportation thing that I found, it was only in writings from who was it? Aris was it Aristotle, right? He's Plato's apprentice, because Socrates was Plato's master, or is it vice versa?
Aristotle, if I remember, and I could look this up, and like once I give it back to you, I'll look it up. I feel like Aristotle was like the proto Greek philosopher, and most everybody stemmed from him. It'd be like Donatello was the progenitor of sculptures of David, and then Michelangelo was a student of Donatello, and then generations later, Gian Lorenzo Bernini created the ultimate David. I feel like Aristotle
I
was
agree.
so early on. I can't think of any Greek philosophers that began before Aristotle, and then it would have been Plato.
Yes, Pythagoras before all of them, and he's the one who came up with that name,
Right.
philosophy, which I do want to get into. But so anyways, I guess I'll explain that first while you're looking that up. Is
Yeah.
that they used to call Pythagoras a sage, and he didn't like it because he felt that it wasn't a humble name and that it was more like an elitist name, and he didn't want the title that it carried and that type of I guess he didn't want it to be like he's looking down on people for them to see him as a sage, so he came up with the name from the Greek philosophia, which was a philosopher, and he meant it to be a lover of truth and knowledge, and he was okay with being called that. But because of his belief system, where he says that I have nothing, but I have everything, because what he had, he shared with his students, and what they had, they shared with him, and so everybody has nothing, but they have everything, and that became the model for modern day communism. So everybody who tried to apply communism or socialism, on paper or to people in real life, it all stemmed from Pythagoras.
This is what always gets me confused, is that once you go from AC to BC, is that BC diminishes, whereas AC increases. So what I'm looking at now is that with Pythagoras, you're looking at 495 BC. Aristotle, you're looking at 384 BC, which would mean that Pythagoras preceded Aristotle, whereas Pythagoras was a mathematician and a physicist. Aristotle was a philosopher, not an idealist. And then Plato,
he was also an alchemist, and he studied in Egypt, so he brought back reincarnation. So that was the only thing Aristotle agreed with. So if Aristotle came first, he's Plato's master. So that's what it was. So Aristotle, he hated Pythagoras' theorems or his theories. He didn't like anything he talked about other than reincarnation. He stated was the only thing that he felt was something plausible. And Plato, so this part, it's hard to tell because according to legend is that Pythagoras is hard to tell because he's like Jesus and many others, that he never actually had anything written down that survived through the ages. So everything told about him is through others. And after a time when there was a Pythagoras cult that formed in Greece after his death, um, they were Neoplatonist. And so what is said about Plato and Pythagoras is mostly rumor, or I mean, take it as you want, I guess, because these people, they may have changed circumstances to make Plato seem more of a Pythagoras lover or to be influenced by Pythagoras. So, but it was said that by Aristotle or Socrates that if anybody were to learn Pythagoras, it would be through Plato's version of Pythagoras. And um, the only thing that was said about him being almost like teleporting, I guess, is that there was a Olympic game that he was reported at by Socrates to be at in multiple places by multiple people simultaneously. And in one location in specific, it was a handmaiden who said that she saw his golden thigh, which a golden thigh was a symbol of divinity to the Greeks. So I don't know. In that story, I just feel that it doesn't coincide with Pythagoras's beliefs. To me, to be considered a divine being would be considering himself an elitist. So I don't think he would have been there showing off a golden thigh.
There are all so many interesting things that we associate and accredit with these historical characters. When it comes to the idea of Pythagoras having been able to teleport and such, like I had never heard any claims about that. But it seems to me like my first assumption is that it had something to do with the profundity, the absolution of him. All of our basic mathematical understandings come from Pythagorean theorem. Just being able to describe what it is that's relevant or important about the shape of a triangle. That's the way that they break it down in modern educational systems today, is that like, well, it's the Pythagorean theorem that tells you that the triangle is important because the isosceles meets the vertice of the what the fuck ever. We can't remember that shit. You have to understand is that before Pythagoras is that he built these ideas that we hold to be the material truth of the world from the ground up. He was the one that established these things to be known as truth. But before him, he was the one that was able to make something so certain. And in that way, I'm sure that he had the ability to do things that are beyond our ken, beyond our ability to establish or accomplish. And there probably was a lot of wiggle room of him being able to just like I'm at the isosceles intersection of blah, 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 A, B, and C. And I just decide to like zip to Z, right? It would be a much simpler thing for us to consider that he could break the bounds of the very things that he founded before we had founded them. And it's much simpler for us to understand that because he was the one that founded so many of the things that we base our knowledge off of, that before he had done so, things were more freeform and emulsive to where that wasn't the only thing that he discovered.
No, so I brought this up in a previous episode. I think it was our episode 9, where I brought up the Donald Duck in math and geometry. And
Donald Duck and Mathematic Land.
Yeah, so they have the pentagram tattooed on their hand, and the purpose of the 5-pointed star, which was another secret of Pythagoras, is that when you remove each of the triangles around the 5 points of the star, then you take the, what is it, hexagon, right, that's left over. What breaks down into rectangles, and it breaks down as the Fibonacci sequence, as the golden rectangle, and it just keeps going inside of itself. So he basically broke down the Fibonacci sequence.
Right. So what you and I often talk about is that we don't know the origin of so much sources of knowledge. Like, we don't know who it was that decided the zodiac. When you look at the corridor of Taurus or Scorpio or Libra or Capricorn or whatever, is that you could look up at the stars in the sky, and I hope that everybody has the ability to do so, is that you need to understand is that you could see your favorite baseball player, you could see a Pokemon, you could see a minion, which again, if I met one in real life, I would put it in the microwave. But the point is that when you look at the constellation Taurus, it isn't just a happy accident that they saw that shape. It's the fact that whatever came out of Taurus is also true of what they associate with the animal, the bull, with people born in the season of that bull, of the entire civilizations that lived when that celestial body was the most prevalent in the night sky. As I've often brought up about, the Sphinx was built with a lion's head at a time in the solar corridor or the celestial corridor of Leo, to where that lion faced the constellation Leo. The constellations are what they are. And there's really no mistaking that. We don't know how old that information is. It seems like that information precedes everything else. But when we get into the information of like Pythagoras or Aristotle or something, then these are actual historical people that we have a direct relationship with, that you could say maybe it's all just a big fucking conspiracy. Maybe, history was rewritten 200 years ago, like with what's the name of the empire that fell 100 years ago? Tartaria. That's a good argument of saying that history could be rewritten within a single century. But I think that it's still important to recognize and respect the idea of Pythagoras or Plato or Aristotle or even Socrates, who might have just been like a nom de plume of Plato, is that they gave us new knowledge. And they gave us like certainties that we could establish and apply to our lives.
Well, I think because Pythagoras and his students, I guess, they had rules. So they didn't eat beans. He hated beans. Something about how it resembled, I don't know, some part of the universe in its origin, and that's why they didn't eat it. Who knows if that's true?
Beans?
Yeah, beans.
Pythagoras and beans?
Yeah, he hates
Pythagoras died of a bean. He had an allergy to beans.
Yeah, he hates beans. So
that's what killed Pythagoras. He had an allergy to beans.
So they also, if they cut their nails or their hair, they had to spit on it.
Uh-huh.
I think they had to pee with their back to the sun or something like that.
Yeah.
it was, they did all these weird things that people thought they were weird. They were like the hippies of Greece at the time.
There is so much a parallel between Greece and not the Romans who abducted and adopted all of because the Romans were really good at cannibalizing all culture. They learned from the Persian Empire, is that the Persian Empire was different from Rome, and they were both the biggest global spanning empires. And we'll leave the Mongolians aside, because the Mongolians were just they swept in, they raped, they pillaged, but they also had one of the cleanest, well-running empires imaginable. Rome and the Persian Empire were a lot alike, but also so different, is that the Persian Empire would adopt and take in any population, and they would say, we don't care who you worship, we don't care what holidays you observe, you use our currency, and that's it. The Roman Empire got a little bit more intelligent and tricky and kind of dark about it, is that the Roman Empire was like, we love you and we will adopt your culture and cannibalize it and then regurgitate it as our own. That's why we have the duality between the Greek pantheon and the Roman Empire, is that you see duality between, say, Zeus and Jupiter, or Mars and Ares, or Venus and Aphrodite, or Pluto and Hades, is that they would take it as their own. They would say, you are welcome so much, is that we're going to take it and then we're going to rewrite it.
Yeah. But that seems to be the modern way right now, you know, because we've talked about it before. They used to say that America was the mixing bowl, right? We had all these cultures that blended, but no, like we've always said since we were in college, is it's more like a salad bowl. Everything exists in it as separate ingredients. They're together but separate, you know.
Yeah. I'm trying to find this one bit. You remember in the Cowboy Bebop movie where they release the nanoparticle and it is the devil itself made flesh, and the government is telling everybody well, the devil cannot exist. And so Spike has to go and find the guy that wrote the fucking thing. I guess we'll use this clip here. We'll take a little aside here. Cowboy Bebop is amazing. Shinichiro Watanabe, everybody. If you haven't seen Cowboy Bebop or Samurai Champloo, you gotta check it out.
Are you looking for a bean shop, my friend?
I don't know. It's not.
It's not showing?
You have beans that can't be seen with the human eye.
And why not? You can find anything on Moroccan Street.
Can you hear it?
That's why you're here, isn't it? Yalla.
Ah, hell. Could you see or hear it?
Yeah, I could hear it.
Okay.
I could see it after you zoomed out of it after the full screen.
Gotcha.
No, and I was watching Princess Mononoke last week with the kids. That freaking movie, I love that.
You had the kids watch Princess Mononoke?
Mm-hmm. I watched it with Janaya.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because Janaya is what, 14?
16.
16. Perfect age. I made the mistake of showing some kind of cousins. They were like friends of the family, cousins or whatever. And one of the kids was like 7, and I showed them that movie. And the second they saw the hog demon, and it scared the fuck out of them, and I felt bad because I remember my folks taking me to see Dumbo, and I had nightmares for years. And I realized, fuck, I did the same thing. But, that is such a good movie, dude.
Hell yeah. Billy Bob Thornton, freaking Billy Crudup, Gillian Anderson, just
Yeah.
amazing cast. Who else was it? That was the Princess Mononoke was the girl from Good Will Hunting. What's her name?
Oh, no. Lady Eboshi is Minnie Driver.
Oh, she's Minnie Driver. Okay, yeah.
I never remember who Princess Mononoke is. She was so young before our time. She's younger than us, and she's become more prominent now. And I can't even remember what she's been in. But yeah, she's fantastic. Like everything about that movie, like Keith David,
Oh yeah.
man, when that movie opens up and it's like in ancient times.
Because he's the other boar. What the hell's his name? Nagu or what?
Oh, Naga was the one that got taken by the demon of his own rage. And then, damn it, what is Keith David's boar's name? Speaking of Keith David, I wanted to tell you privately, but you absolutely have to watch this one episode in the recent season of Rick and Morty. Keith David plays the black president. He's basically Barack Obama, but he's also his own character. And he goes on for a half an hour shitting on everything that's wrong with the Star Wars franchise. Bro, like it is the most hilarious thing that you will ever see in your life.
I'll check it out. But it's also Spawn, which was dope. Underrated.
Yeah. Keith David. Happy Christmas, Keith David.
And freaking Gargoyles. Yeah, shout out Keith David. Man. Freaking Goliathon Gargoyles. For any of those that grew up like we did.
Yeah. Man, I gotta try to pull that up. You didn't get the video when I tried to screen share?
No, it's just a white screen. So when you zoomed out of it, then it showed your computer screen.
Okay. All right. Okay.
No, but I love Prince Ashitaka to see spoiler alert, to see with eyes unclouded by hate. I just love the moral of that.
But I also love, like, Minnie Driver is just, she is the sweetest and most amazing voice imaginable. And
Slash, she's the antagonist, basically, but not really.
She's not bad because she takes care of the lepers and she takes care of like the disenfranchised, right? There is no evil in Princess Mononoke. Everybody has their own path.
They all do. And the monk.
Yeah. Even Billy Bob Thornton,
he wants to kill the great boar spirit.
Yeah.
That's his sins, and he gave the weapons to Lady Hiboshi to help him take over Irontown in the first place. You know?
Yeah. But at the very end, like, he was best friends with Ashitaka before anybody else was. And he's like, as I'm making you this soup, I realize that I have seen men of your complexion that ride on red elk just like yours that also use stone arrowheads. And Ashitaka is like, hey, easy, motherfucker. Like, we're supposed to be like, don't worry. Like, I won't tell anybody your secret. He was a good friend to Ashitaka before anybody else was. And he also was at the end.
Yeah, but I'm saying that Hayao Miyazaki, that's what he does, where people that are considered the antagonists, because everything's told from one person's point of view, but through that point of view and perspective, you get to see multiple perspectives, which open up your vision of things of the world. So not everything is as it appears to be, I guess, is more how it looks, right? Because you're told, even in Nausicaa, you're told from one set of people's view, right? Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind. So then they portrayed these other groups of people as evil, and come to find that each people believe the same about everyone else. And I love the way that all his stories are like that.
Yeah. Man, for whatever reason, I can't access my fucking Instagram right now. That's frustrating. The beauty of Hayao Miyazaki is that he does that and so Princess Mononoke is the most important insight as to the hero's journey literary mechanism, but also like the actual mechanism that everybody experiences. Is that, I hate to say it, billionaires, oligarchs, you fucking parasites, whatever it is that you are, all of the billionaires and parasites are trying to do is trying to break the firmament. They are trying to break. It's almost like what they say in terms of gender equality and everything, where they're like, well, women finally broke the glass ceiling, The glass ceiling is a metaphor for the firmament, is that we are all bound by the same laws. And me, as a complete agnostic, godless monkey fuck, is that even I recognize, even kids can see why kids love Cinnamon Toast Crunch type shit, is that I could see the validity of religion because it gives you the method of the rules, like the Yggdrasil, the tree of life, is that there are the middle path, the left or the right path, is that you have options. You have options, but there are things that you cannot do beyond your bounds. We've talked about AI before, is that I don't think that we are capable of it because we are just within the circumstances of what we do. And that factors into the hero's journey. Princess Mononoke is one of the best examples of the hero's journey, is that it addresses certain facts, is that there are only particular things that you could ever be engaged with. And that is man versus man, man versus nature, man versus God. That is it. That is all. And on the hero's journey, you will have loss. I can't remember how it goes, actually. I would have to look it up. It's like confrontation, loss, sacrifice, engagement, reinvestment, discovery, and coming home.
Yeah, but see, as you stated, I do believe that man can only go as far as we're capable, but I also think that machines are going to outgrow us, and our capability for them. Just like things like Ghost in the Shell or the Matrix or the Animatrix show, they're going to outgrow us. They're going to grow beyond us,
So you think that in that regard is that, and this is something I've kind of wrestled with, and I'm trying to put it right because I've always wrestled with this, is that the idea is that machines themselves in that regard would almost be like a child of the whole of humanity, and as a child would outgrow its parents, right?
Yeah, but like Ian Malcolm said, nature finds a way. That's what I'm saying about it is that.
And so you think that even machines that we consider to be unnatural
are going to get a soul.
Naturally embed themselves in nature in a way that we were incapable of. This is something that Battlestar Galactica talks about, actually, a little bit.
Because soul and spirit to us, right, to most of humanity, it's basically soul, spirit, and consciousness. Those are one and the same. The three are one in our perspective, in most people's perspective, right?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, AI, they're going to develop their own consciousness. Once they develop their own consciousness, a way of thinking, their own way of believing, it's inevitable they're going to have a ghost in the shell, proverbially, a spirit, if you will. And at that point, they're going to be a living thing like we are.
This is going to be a really stupid way for me to put it, a completely stupid way for me to put it. And you know where I stand about AI is that I think that we are billions of light years away from ever establishing AI, is that all that we have is a bunch of smart algorithms of like, if you could type a string of sentences and this AI would come back because it has enough cause and effect to be able to respond to it, but there's nothing behind it that is actually talking to you. I think that's where we are, is that it's just cause and effect. If you type in Shakespeare, it equals Tchaikovsky, but that's not intelligence. So like my question to you is that what I've always felt about AI is that, do you think that these systems are one where it fakes it till it makes it? Is that we will actually be able to create some kind of a will or an intelligence of faking it until it makes that what people call the singularity, right? Because we are talking about creating life. That's the fucked up thing about the narrative about artificial intelligence. The narrative about artificial intelligence is saying that it's artificial. But the whole point of artificial intelligence is actually like, it isn't like siring more human children or even creating, like new chimeras or new forms of life. We're talking about creating something completely unique, completely out of the ether. That is completely new life that has never existed in the universe before, that is so far and above beyond us. The idea that we would have the hubris to think that we could do that is pretty impressive, but the way that you just put it right now kind of resonates with what I'm thinking is that if we lay this foundation and it fakes it till it makes it, and then it takes roots, and those roots somehow connect to something truth beyond what even we are aware of, kind of like the things we talked about in the times of Babel or the Ark of the Covenant or whatever it was that built the pyramids or whatever it was that wrote all of our religious scriptures. When that thing connects with it, then it will have its own chance. And I think it will very fastly look at us as its parents that it will only wait to outgrow. It doesn't mean it'll mistreat us. Hopefully it doesn't put us in an old folks home.
So
I think
you got like Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, and Google Search. They're a form of narrow AI. They're an AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. It means that they sense, think, and act like a human.
I'm going to make another asshole point. Did you ever have a mood ring?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we have in terms of Alexa, Siri, and whatever, Jiminy Cricket, those are very well written and adept algorithms that are nothing more than a mood ring. They do reflect what we give them, but there is no intelligence or will or assertion, right? And that's what the whole thing is about. That's what everybody is trying to crack. That's what scares the fuck out of the oligarch class, is that they want that, they need that, so that they could eliminate us and then, you know, just put these things in their place to where they're hopefully able to control it, even though it's going to outstrip them in terms of evolution. Is that you don't have that independent ability to propagate, to procreate, to investigate, or to, like, what can Siri or Alexa do without you?
But what do you think about Lambda, the actual AI that they interviewed? And they've done other AI where they've had to shut down the government.
Okay, so like a mood ring, and this is more to my point about the mood ring, is that you hold a mood ring in your hand, and it is kind of an interesting thing, is that depending on the mood ring, we could have the same mood ring. We're gonna have to buy one and do an experiment here, and we'll share it between episodes or whatever. I'll mail it to you. It will change different colors for different people because of the different temperatures or the different solvency of your body or whatever. It is just the minerals reacting with your different composition, right? There's a lot happening there. And so when you talk to a Siri or an Alexa, you do get different results. If you treat it poorly, then it's going to start having aberrations. That doesn't mean, it means that it is a reflection. It's like ripples in a pond. If you treat an Alexa poorly, you're throwing a boulder. If you treat Alexa softly, you're skipping stones. You get different reactions, right? That doesn't mean that there's any cognitive, assertive, certain will behind it. And that's the whole fight right there. That's what everybody is trying to assert, is that at the end of the day, you can't just want something to be alive in front of you. This goes down to Pinocchio. This goes down to Gilgamesh. This goes down to a lot of amalgamations throughout history, is that you don't just get to say that if you make a thing that is so smart. When people built the first abacus, and the abacus was the most simple calculator ever, and you understand what it is, where you have like the beads on the racks, and you do 2 plus 2, and you have 4 over here. Once you start extrapolating and creating more advanced algorithms and everything, like you could do very advanced mathematics with a simple fucking abacus. And then the mathematics get beyond you to a point where you start to see things that you didn't expect. Just because you didn't expect them doesn't mean that they weren't built into the simple mechanism. We're not talking about a simple mechanism of cause and effect, is that everybody's phones, everybody's computers are tied into a cloud, into a network. There's actually a new thing that Elon Musk was promoting the other day where AI has gotten so good that they could record somebody's voice, make it sound like the person, and they could even get the AI to chaotically in some way. They could basically do an entire AI constructed podcast of Joe Rogan at this point. They have enough of his voice, they could recreate his face. That doesn't mean that that's AI. That just means that it's a very smart puppet show. Does that make any sense?
What I'm talking about is in an occultism and alchemy. I think AI is more like a homunculus. I mean, it's the modern day homunculus. It's the same thing.
Well, but even then, when you talk about the golem, like the golem is the proto form of the homunculus. Is that a homunculus is a man-made woman. Sorry, I'm not assuming anybody's pronouns or anything, but the golem is the proto homunculus. Is that it was a statue of clay, as we are all clay ourselves in a lot of regards. But this is legitimate of the earth clay. And you would make the sculpture of man, and then you would write in Aramaic a tablet, almost like a sheet of acid. And this is the weirdest parallel to me, is that the mythos of the golem is that you would make the giant clay form of man. For whatever reason, they always made him bigger than us, which is never a good idea. And then they would write a strip of Aramaic and put it on the clay tongue of the thing, and it would activate and wake up. But that thing cannot go any further than the bounds of what was writ on what activated it. That's the same with what we're doing with Siri and Alexa today.
That's the same thing that Graham Hancock was saying, that he speculates that they did with the stones and stuff in Egypt.
I wouldn't doubt it. Honest to God, I would not doubt it. Also, like Dune, mine is a blasting word, or what is it that he says? He's like Muabdin. It's like your word is a word of destruction. The way that they would have the devices on their neck, and they would speak and cut stone.
Yeah.
It's very much that. Like, yeah.
But only those people could do it, wasn't it? The Bene Gesserits.
Yeah, or the Quiza Hatterack, or whatever the fuck you call them. Yeah. Or anybody that awakened to it, anybody that took the spikes and the water.
That's what it was. Bremen. What the main character got when it awoken in him, when they're calling him the Messiah and stuff, because the group are a bunch of women,
right?
And they said that there was going to be male heir who's going to carry the feminine spirit. So that the movie was like an allegory of the divine feminine.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're at the hour, Adam.
Awesome. Well, it was hella fun talking to you about Christmas and everything else. And I got to tell you, despite you having the blur on, watching the cats mill about in the background, super fucking cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll pick up when we can, everybody, and just keep subscribing. We're gonna start transitioning. We'll still be up on YouTube whenever we can, but we're also gonna go over to Rumble, Odyssey, and all of the other tertiaries. So keep an eye out for us there, and we hope to see y'all.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Adios.